Ah, the lawn. Grass, but make it square. Who doesn't love the smell of someone giving their house hair a military-grade buzz cut? The back-breaking task of shearing your plant spikes to uniform length may seem entirely pointless, but a freshly cut lawn is many a boomer's pride and joy. Along with having a home, car, and busty apron-clad wife, having your own patch of tightly trimmed turf was an integral ingredient of the mid-century American dream. It's a place where your children play, your pets defecate, and your world-class athletes receive lifelong brain damage. The land of the free take their lawns so seriously that you can even be arrested for failing to cut it, and yet they can only grow naturally in America's top right-hand corner. Thank the grassy gods then that a multi-billion-dollar industry has sprouted up to sell lawnmowers, pesticides and sprinkler systems to stop your lawn from succumbing to the cruel fate of nature. But how did this water-wasting, finger-mincing hobby of keeping your grass from not being dead become so widespread? Well, like most of the world's problems, we must first blame the British. The first things what got called lawns were the stretches of land outside medieval settlements reserved for grazing livestock. The nibblings of these meat mowers kept the grass nice and short, and allowed landowners to survey the wider territory and look out for potential threats or the Scottish. But this kind of grass is only really native to northwestern Europe, and can only grow in similar climates that resemble a gym shirt armpit, consistently grey and damp. This uniquely miserable weather cultivates a thick, lush carpet of grass and a population with vitamin D deficiencies. By the late 17th century, rich folk had grown to love the look of inch-length plant matter. So a trend developed where they'd keep patches of land free of crops as a sign of wealth and status. But maintaining these early lawns fell to the people who actually had to work for their money, earning it through the labour-intensive task of lawn scything. The two-handed, slightly curved scythe was in use since the Middle Ages, and scything a lawn took precision, dexterity, and stamina. Luckily, people like Richard Brown keep the practice alive on YouTube. I try to come back to this video whenever I need to quell my artery-popping rage, and judging by the view count, I'm not alone. The standard of the grand, empty English garden among the upper classes surged in the 18th century. They cut the grass so that people could better see their enormous homes and prove that they had enough land to waste a bunch of it. Wow, there's nothing here at all. You must be rich. Sure am. Now get the fuck off my lawn. The man most responsible for giving England's stately homes a bikini wax was Capability Brown, pictured here side-eyeing us across the centuries. Known as England's greatest gardener, he designed over 170 of the country's grandest green spaces. He replaced wild and varied vistas with featureless expanses of empty green lawn, turning the grounds of grand estates into the default Windows XP wallpaper. He was celebrated and in constant demand during his lifetime, but once he was under the turf himself, his legacy of steamrolling the natural scenery became hotly debated. Or at least as hotly debated as you can get in the painfully polite world of 18th century gardening, where criticism was offered in poem form.
Thy spade and mattock here at length lay down, and follow to the tomb thy favourite Brown. Thy favourite Brown, whose innovating hand first dealt thy curses o'er this fertile land. Fucking got him.
The practice of lawn keeping remained in the realm of these super-rich slam poets until the invention of the lawnmower. 40 years after the French learnt to take a few inches off the aristocracy, an engineer was looking at a carpet cutter and wondered if he could do the same for nature's carpet. The first lawnmower was born in 1830, meaning it was no longer necessary to hire a half-dozen labourers to keep the lawn shorn. The first American lawnmowers appeared in the 1860s, which was good timing because thanks to the Civil War, the salary of field labourers had just gone from $0 to some dollars. While it turned out importing humans from Africa wasn't entirely necessary to maintain a lawn, importing grass seeds from Europe was. Even then, a lawn could only really be grown in the northeast of America, otherwise it would just die in the summer or not grow at all. As the Industrial Revolution sputtered to a start, cities became crowded, smoggy, and filled with foreigners, leading some wealthy wasps to up sticks and move. The proliferation of railways meant that the rich could live in one-family homes on the outskirts of cities, and still spend 5 days a week inhaling their factories' fumes. Many of these proto-suburbs would feature a friendly front garden planted with European grass seed, but many were also used to grow vegetables or just left to go wild. The aesthetic ideal of the single-seed velvety lawn was growing though, thanks in large part to the public parks movement and the growing popularity of lawn sports like bowls and croquet. But it was the introduction of an obscure Scottish game of knocking balls into holes in the ground in 1888 that would completely transform the American landscape. In just 30 years, golf cemented itself as an American obsession. In 1916, there were close to 750 golf courses in the country. Just 12 years later, there were over 5,500.
I never go on a practice tee unless I have a definite purpose in view.
And golfing royalty like Bobby Jones taught the masses how to flap a golf stick right in these early Warner Brothers serials.
I hit another one, hit anything.
Golf courses were a central attraction to new housing developments, and being a golf club member was a surefire way to earn yourself some class-based kudos.
The club back far enough for the shot. Now look.
Due to paying these membership fees, and perhaps because they were always holding a weapon capable of inflicting blunt force trauma, club members were pretty demanding. They expected to roam the same freshly cut greens that they saw at the US Open, mostly unaware of the absurd effort it took to maintain them. Golf became such a profitable industry that the question of maintaining lawns in drier climates became one for the US government. The USDA and the newly created division of agroastrology, real word, were created to better sustain golf courses, and much of this research was conducted under the watchful eye and walrus-like mustache of America's first golfing president. The USDA started an experimental farm in Arlington, Virginia, where they bred new seeds that could better survive in different climates. These experiments were so successful that when President Big Boy died of a heart attack in 1930, he was buried under the freshly grown lawn of Arlington Cemetery, which was just over the road from the experimental lawn. And due to unrelated events in Europe, he'd soon have a lot of company. When World War II broke out, golfing and those lawn experiments were put on hold, as the resources and manpower were needed to fight the Nazis. The Arlington experimental lawn was paved over and given to the Department of Defense, who promptly built a giant polygon on it where all their spies could live. But the war itself sparked two developments which would allow the lawn to grow stronger than ever before. The first was the creation of a selective herbicide called 2,4-D, secretly developed by the military to starve invading enemies. It killed broadleaf weeds and crops without touching the grass. When the war ended, it became the core ingredient of most domestic herbicides, meaning that the sexy standard of a single seed lawn was now achievable for anyone who wanted to dump military-grade chemicals on their front porch. More important though was the booming post-war economy that brought the lawn to the masses. Benefits provided by the GI Bill meant that ex-servicemen could afford a home without a deposit, and with the 40-hour work week finally enshrined in legislation, American men could spend their weekends doing hours of unpaid groundskeeping. And if they lived in the suburbs, they pretty much had no choice in the matter. Housing demand was booming, so supply had to catch up. In 1949, a man named Bill Levitt and his family reinvented the home for the era of mass production. His company bought huge sections of land close to cities, bulldozed it, and built rows of identical homes onto concrete slabs. With the use of this assembly line process, Bill claimed that his company was creating a new home every 16 minutes during peak production. But the houses were relatively small, taking up less than a quarter of each lot. The rest of the lot was covered in inexpensive grass seed. While Bill Levitt led the company and essentially invented modern suburbia, he left the job of the lawn to his dad, Abraham Levitt, who took the job very seriously and promptly went mad with power. An avid golfer, he liked his lawns how I like my women: short, well organised and shaved once a week. An agreement was placed into each Levittown homeowner's deed that said they had to mow their lawn once a week between the months of April and November. If they missed a week, they were liable to find one of Abe's lawn crews on their property and a bill for service in their mailbox. With the threat of a fine and acute embarrassment, Abe's standard became America's standard seemingly overnight. The irony was, though, that the standard of a low-cut lawn actually hurts the plant. The lower and more frequently the grass is cut, the more you interfere with its ability to grow strong roots and carry out photosynthesis. The weekly mow sessions enforced by Levitt may have kept your grass tidy, but eventually it would kill the plant and lead to unsightly bald patches, especially if your lawn was located anywhere south of Baltimore. As the Sunbelt cities sprouted beyond their urban limits into the countryside, everyone still expected a patch of the green stuff. Climate be damned, developers grew lawns from the most inhospitable environments, from Albuquerque to Atlanta, Los Angeles to Disneyland for brain-damaged adults. New hybrid seeds were developed to survive these conditions, but keeping a lawn alive in the desert meant drowning it in water as well as a fuck ton of fertilizer. And of course, all that mowing would have been a total ball ache if it weren't for the mass production of the power mower, which didn't just shear the grass like the measly push mower, it shredded it. This sped up the one domestic task that suburban men were actually expected to do, which partly explains the American man's lasting love affair with his lawnmower.
Whoa, pull the cord. Start mowing the lawn with the 3. I'll talk more about that later on.
And really, is there anything more manly than a 2-kilogram blade that spins at 4,000 rotations a minute? I can't think of anything. By the late 1960s, the ideal of the perfect lawn was an obsessive dream for many. One that was perfectly green, free of weeds, crabgrass and brown patches. It was this dream that the billion-dollar lawn care industry was built on, with each product promising another step closer to neighbor envy nirvana. Golfing greens got shorter, pesticides got stronger, lawn care regimes became more complex, and sprinklers got funkier. My favourite are the ones that go like... While a perfect green could be achieved in basically any climate, it could take thousands of dollars and hours of manpower. But the shorter a lawn was kept, the easier it was for things like crabgrass to grow, which thrives with access to sunlight and from the room vacated by weakened roots. This is the ultimate irony of the lawn. The more you mow it, the more fertilizer it needs. The more fertilizer you dump on it, the more water it requires, and the more water you dump on it, the more work that you're going to have to do year round. The actual effort of maintaining the perfect turf actually creates more work. The lawn care industry saw the writing on the wall. People still wanted a perfect lawn, but they didn't want to have to get off their arse. Over the next 40 years, people would progressively choose to outsource their lawn work to machines, chemicals, and cheap immigrant labor.
Is your lawn consuming more than fertilizer? Is it eating up all of your leisure time, too?
The Chem Lawn Company arrived just in time for this transition to lawn laziness, with a team of uniformed specialists who jizzed rainbows into your dirt. These pesticide spewers merged with True Green in the early 90s and remain one of the most profitable lawn care companies in the country. But because you can easily dump a few £100 of military-grade chemicals onto your own lawn, lawn care companies justified their service charge with signature chemical cocktails. With a list of toxic ingredients that make the instructions to build a pipe bomb look like a recipe for scrambled eggs, it might have been worth tolerating a bit of crabgrass. To my mind though, the gas-powered leaf relocator is possibly the most baffling invention to gain mass popularity until the fidget spinner. Since the 1960s, they've made your leaves your neighbour's problem, but they're also frequently used to blow away grass clippings, which actually would fertilise your lawn naturally. This is also the problem with these grass-catching dong bags that are frequently attached to the greatest innovation in lawn laziness, the ride-on mower. The ride-on mower also found its market in the late 1960s, where advertisers promised they'd cut your mowing time in half. Since then, the mower that most easily accommodates a cup holder has taken on a cultish appeal. But the widespread adoption of heavy machinery in the garden has meant that lawns are also getting fertilized with fingers and toes. By the late 1970s, the Consumer Product Safety Commission estimated that 150,000 people a year were being injured by lawnmowers. And if these numbers seem insanely high, it's because the lawnmower industry fought regulation at every 0-point turn. The CPSC politely asked the lawnmower industry to install brake clutch controls, stopping the blades when a device moved from a mowing position. But through its lobbying arm, the industry resisted this change for decades, taking the matter to court and Congress before finally relenting in 1982, at which point injuries fell sharply. By 2019, the total number of mower maulings has basically halved since its 1970s peak. But lawn-based fatalities are still distressingly common. As the industry has become more labor-intensive, it is now one of the most dangerous occupations in America. In 2019 alone, ground maintenance workers recorded a total of 229 fatalities. That might not sound like a lot, but that is over 3 times the number of police officers that were killed in the line of duty that same year. You can interpret those cherry-picked statistics however you like. I'm just saying, where's the Green Lives Matter flag? These brave men and women, mostly men, who walk the green line every day, risking life and their limbs to keep our yards fresh. The least we can do is put some goddamn respect on their names. Maybe it is both ethical and inevitable that the final frontier of lawn laziness is already with us. The machines haven't quite gained enough sentience to take over the world, but they're making a start on rich people's yards. Although if you ask me, it's only a matter of time before nature fights back.
Nice.
Today, lawns are the most popular irrigated crop in the United States, beating out both corn and a sticky icky, and taking up over 40 million acres. Perhaps more importantly though, over 9 billion gallons of fresh water are being dumped on these inedible pasture patches every day. In drier climates, these entirely unnatural lawns are actually taking up more of the household water supply than the whole rest of the house. And maintaining a single golf course in Tampa, Florida takes up the same amount of water that 2,200 people could use to live and stuff. And as the climate apocalypse cometh, these hot states are the exact places that are going to need that water for other stuff. Stuff like putting out wildfires and unparching the parched, and in the case of Tampa, Florida specifically, spraying the boobies of its many strippers. Maintaining cute little decorative verges on the side of the road seems particularly pointless, especially when the only people using them are the people mowing them. And I know what some of you are thinking right now, maybe I should just go out and touch some grass. But I don't really like to leave my endless blue void if I can help it, so I'm going to send my buddy Andrew out to do it for me.
Well, here's a lawn. This shit sucks. That's a 0 out of 10. Fuck this lawn. I don't like this one. And here we have the unkempt lawn. Shut up! The quality difference between this and a fresh cut lawn is not that different, honestly. I'm not really sure why I'm out here. It's just grass. It's just different kinds of grass. This is fucking stupid.
There will always be a place in this world for lawns, but we should probably cool it on the weekly buzz cuts and all that fertilizer. If you love your lawn, awesome. Water that bitch, get it all green. But after learning more about lawns than anyone ever should, I think I can confidently say that the lesson of the lawn is also a lesson for life. Poor is the man who cultivates an image of wealth and success only to impress others. That vain pursuit will leave you and your lawn emptier as a result. Let your grass grow free, because one day you're going to be underneath it, and no one's going to remember if you had a nice lawn or not. And if they do, you probably weren't that interesting in the first place. Alright, stick around for the stinger. Bye! Oh hi! Didn't see you there. I was just reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed making it. And if you want to choose what video comes next, you can choose it right now. It's either going to be about credit cards or a little company called BlackRock. You might have heard of them. They might be your landlord. Let me know which one you want me to cover in the comments below. And like this video, which is now over.